I think it also depends on which day you ask me. If I had a particularly struggling day at work and then struggling at home, it sucks to be a mom. But then there's days when, like, I went out of town for the weekend. I came home Sunday and my house was spotless. My kids scrubbed the house and I was like unbelievably thankful. And it was like, yes, great mother moment. And so it goes back and forth.
Welcome to the How It Feels to Be a Mother podcast, where we dive into the emotional complexities and varied experiences of motherhood. I'm your host, Sarah Broberg. This judgment-free zone is a place where mothers can express their authentic feelings and experiences as whole human beings. In each episode, we'll explore the catalyst question at the heart of this movement. How does it feel to be a mother? Through engaging discussions with mothers from diverse backgrounds from around the world, we'll explore the complexity of emotions along the continuum of motherhood. Join us as we speak with mothers from all walks of life, from those with infants to those with adult children, uncovering the vast emotional continuum of motherhood. Whether you find motherhood to be a blessing or a challenge or somewhere in between, sometimes all at once, this podcast is here to validate your feelings and to break the stigma, shame, and guilt that can often accompany maternal experiences. Tune in and be a part of a movement that empowers mothers to embrace the emotional depths of what it really feels like to be a mother. Join the conversation.
Welcome to this episode of How It Feels to Be a Mother. I'm your host, Sarah. Our special guest today is Shannon, a 46-year-old single mother of 3. We explore Shannon's story from becoming a mother as a teenager to adopting her 2 sons in her 30s, all while managing the ups and downs of single parenthood. She opens up about the ways her children came into her life, the evolution of her feelings about motherhood over the years, the importance of her chosen family and community support, and how her upbringing shaped her parenting style. Whether you're a mother, aspiring to be one, or simply curious about the multifaceted journey of parenting, tune in as we explore the emotional complexities along the continuum of motherhood. Hey, Shannon, thanks for being here on this episode of How It Feels to Be a Mother. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Before we get started, maybe we could provide a little bit of context to your story. So if you wouldn't mind providing your age, your preferred pronouns, your relationship status, the ages of your children, and their preferred pronouns.
My name is Shannon. I'm 46. My preferred pronouns are she and her. I have 3 children. I have a 29-year-old daughter. Her pronouns are she and her. She is married. She has an 8-year-old daughter, so I have a granddaughter. I have 2 sons that are adopted. One is 16, Carter, he and him. And then Alex, who is 15, his pronouns are also he and him.
Thank you so much. All right.
And I'm a single parent. Sorry, I've always been a single parent.
Always been a single
Always
parent.
been a single parent, never been married.
All right. Well, we might dive into that then. But before we begin, the catalyst question.
Oh, yes.
Shannon, how does it feel to be a mother?
I feel I'm learning throughout these conversations, but a lot of them with you, I have realized that different stages in my life I feel differently about being a mother. As a teenager, when I became a mother, never wanted to be a mother. And so that was a struggle. And still, I never wanted to have kids. And then now I have 3. I think it also depends on which day you ask me. If I had a particularly struggling day at work and then struggling at home, it sucks to be a mom. But then there's days when, I went out of town for the weekend. I came home Sunday and my house was spotless. My kids scrubbed the house and I was unbelievably thankful. And it was like, yes, great mother moment. And so it goes back and forth.
Oh, I love that. I need your tips and tactics.
I don't know what happened. I was just like, wow, thank you so much.
Wow. That's really special. That's
Yeah.
great. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but does the feeling of being a mother feel like you thought it would?
I guess when I think about it, I'm not really sure how I expected to feel as a mom. Not having, in my opinion, the 100% motherly influence. And I started as a young age, kind of almost being a mother to my younger siblings, because we were raised by our dad mostly. And so maybe not those traditional mother values that you see out in the world. I never thought about any of those. To me, my being a mother just kind of turned into, I guess, at first a job and just something I was supposed to do. And then as I got older, I think more of the heartfelt stuff kind of came into it more later. And so now when I see other mothers, I'm like, yes, I'm doing this right. And this is how I should feel.
Mm-hmm. So I do just want to interject and say, like, one of the key pieces of this work is that we as mothers this is exceptionally emotionally complicated work that we do as mothers, right? And so I believe that there's not like how we should feel or how society tells us we should feel about being a mother. However you feel about being a mother at any given time is 100% valid for you. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you touched on one of the themes that kind of has emerged from this work, which is the ways in which we were raised. You had talked about your dad and kind of feeling like a mother to your siblings early on. So the ways in which we were raised, how they influence the ways in which we choose to raise our children. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I'm the oldest of 3 sisters, 2 younger sisters, and my parents divorced when I was probably in 6th grade, and we mostly lived with my dad. My mom, if you talk to her today, she will tell you that she raised us, and I promise you she didn't. But my dad, they went to court. He ended up getting custody because my sisters wanted to live with him. So the judge, back then, it was the judge let the kids talk. And so that's what they decided, majority ruled. But he worked. He worked all the time. He was a construction worker, and he started drinking at that time. So he was at work all day, and then he would be out all night drinking at the bars. And so I was tasked with making sure the house was taken care of. He would bring food home. And leave stuff there. So I cooked a lot, cleaned the house a lot, just to make sure that they had everything they need. And it's just a role I just kind of fell in my lap, and I think I embraced it very well. And but I also think that role really shaped me now, like as an adult, and all the drive that kind of gave me, and the sense of responsibilities had a lot of impact on me, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How has the feeling of this kind of moves into the next question really is, then how has the feeling of being a mother changed for you over time? Because I guess in some ways when you were sort of responsible for your siblings, that is one way of feeling like a mother. And then you mentioned as a teenager, it was more like a job. And then, so I'm just curious how maybe those two influenced each other in a way. So I'm just curious, how has the feeling of being a mother for you changed over time?
I think it's more of life stages. So as a kid, it was a job, but then as a teen mom, I still, like, my job was to raise my kid. But then, like, with the boys, being a little bit older, I kind of focused on myself more, and I got to a place where I could focus on myself more. And so then it didn't feel as much like a job. It felt I guess more rewarding in some ways. There's definitely frustrations, but it was, I think I felt like I had that freedom of more of being that mom and incorporating more of those, like, nurturing, caring moments that I would expect out of a mom. With my daughter, I did nothing but work. And she probably missed out on a lot of the things that she probably needed in a mom.
Mm-hmm. Are you finding yourself now that you're a grandmother, how does that show up?
Well, it was very hard at first because I never wanted that for my daughter. I never wanted her to be a young mom. She ended up having her when she was 20, which is still very young. But I find, as a grandparent, I think that you have the liberty to do things a little bit differently. You can be a lot nicer and less strict, and you can spoil a little bit more, and then, expect the parents to be more of the parent.
Okay, whenever we launch in like 5 years' time, how it feels to be a grandmother, I'm tapping you for that.
Oh, yeah. I just love her. But now she's getting older and she just doesn't need me anymore.
Oh.
Yeah.
Save it for the podcast, dearie. So you're like naturally like hitting on a lot of the themes I wanted to follow up on, which is awesome. It's like a good natural conversation. So, one of the key kind of aspects of diversity from this work that I wanted to bring to the fore, if you will, is the diversity in the ways in which the children come into our lives. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about how your daughter came into your life and maybe that story a little bit, and then talk about how your boys came into your life.
Sure. When I was 16 and starting to, I guess I can be blunt on here, explore sex and things like that, I met a guy and I got pregnant very first time. And then I was scared to death to tell my dad. And so my friend's mom told my dad for me because they were very good friends. And when he found out, he said, absolutely not. You're not going to be a mom. At 16, you're having an abortion. And so he made an appointment for me at the clinic. At the day of the appointment, he put me in the car and to take me to the appointment. And he sat there for a minute and he said, I can't do it. I can't go through with it. I can't take you to do this. And so I ended up not having one, which that blessing in disguise. And now I have this amazing, 29-year-old daughter who's my best friend and my neighbor. And we talk every day and we do everything together. And it's just that one split second, things could have been so different with her. And so I'm very thankful. And then with my boys, they are biologically my nephews. And so my youngest sister has had 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl. She has the girl who's the youngest one. Her oldest son she gave up for adoption. And then she had Carter, who was my 16-year-old. And she had some substance use issues and mental health issues. And when Carter was 3 days old, someone had made a report to social services, Child Protective Services. And they went to her house and decided that he wasn't safe with her. And so I got a phone call on a Friday afternoon. And they asked me if I could take a baby. And so I had a baby a couple hours later.
Wow.
On a Friday. And then
rolling right into the weekend.
Yeah, he never left. I've had him since then. And then about a year and a half later, she never worked a case plan and she had another baby. And they went to the hospital and they said, this baby's not safe. Can you take this baby as well? And so I picked him up from the hospital. And then we worked with social services for a good almost 2 years. And her and her husband, they just couldn't do it like successfully. They couldn't do a plan successfully. And so they signed their rights away and adopted both boys.
Like what you're hearing? We'd love your feedback. Please leave a review.
Wow. How did it feel to be a mom, like all over again, all those years later?
It was scary because, when you're 16, 17 and you have a baby, you have to readjust your life, right? You have to figure things out. And then, you're going along and all of a sudden my daughter's 13 and they're like, here's another baby, figure it out. And so I had to figure it out. I used my village. I used my friends, my family, my chosen family, which is most of my friends, and got everything that I needed and figured it out. And then when Alex came along, to be honest, having 2 babies, I was so stressed out. And Alex, when Alex was like 6 weeks old, I was at my wit's end. I was exhausted, didn't know what I was doing. And I called social services and I said, I can't do this anymore. He has to live somewhere else. And so they placed him somewhere else. He was gone for about a week. And I felt like the worst person in the world. And then the people that had him said that they didn't want to keep him unless they could adopt him. And so I brought him back home with me and we were fine. I think I just needed a break. But yeah, I kind of hate myself sometimes for doing that to him. And because I felt like I gave up, but I think I just needed a break.
Oh gosh, such complicated feelings.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned that we'll maybe talk about this in a minute, but you mentioned your community, your village, your chosen family. So I'd love to hear more about them in a minute. But first, I want to hear what's your favorite thing about how it feels to be a mother?
I like to feel appreciated. I think since growing up, and I've felt like maybe something was missing, and I always liked that like approval and feedback and feeling it made me feel good about myself. And so I think a lot of times when the kids appreciate me, it makes me feel good about myself. I know that's a little bit selfish, but it's a good feeling sometimes. Those random moments when even Carter, 16-year-old Carter, will come and lay in the bed with me. Hey, can we watch a movie? Things like that feel good. He sent me a random text message on Saturday, say, "Hey, Mom, I love you." And so just those teeny tiny little moments, I think, make up for all of the stress and bad moments.
Yeah, I can relate to that too. Just
Yeah.
the unexpected nature of those little gestures, I think is just really lovely. I have two boys. I don't know what it's like to have a girl. Maybe that's a little bit more forthcoming with girls. I don't know. It probably just depends on the girl and the boy, to be clear. We're not trying to stereotype anybody here.
Yeah.
But yeah, the words of affirmation, that is my love language 100%. So I feel you, like that is not selfish at all. I just think that that's how you choose to receive. You prefer to receive love, and that's super valid. I think you're doing a phenomenal job as a mother.
Thank you.
What concerns you about how it feels to be a mother?
I think at this point, there's not a ton of, I guess, concerns about how it feels to be a mom. It's just more of my concerns now are about, they revolve more around my kids and, what is going to happen for them as they get older. And then, have I done my job as a mother to make sure they're going to be decent human beings? I guess that would probably be a concern, but just their safety. I have anxiety about something. I have boys. I have anxiety about something happening to my boys. Those are the kind of the big things. And also, I work. The experiences that I had with social services and adopting the two boys kind of made me choose my line of work. So I work in child protective services. And I see the scary stuff. I see the worst of the worst. And I carry some of that home with me sometimes. So that concerns me, that I'm carrying that to my kids, and then it overshadows some of the freedom that I should let them have.
That's really important work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Okay, we're shifting gears a little bit. What surprises you about how it feels to be a mother?
Maybe how it can be so utterly frustrating and exhausting in 1 second, and then 5 minutes later be the complete opposite. It doesn't carry.
Yeah, I think for me too, and maybe sometimes not even 5 minutes later, but sometimes simultaneously. Sometimes I'm totally exhausted and I feel energized by this conversation I'm having with my kid, or, getting that text message from them, or thinking about the game on the field or whatever the things are. So yeah, I think those are just those, the juxtaposition of the emotions. I think that's a big piece that surprised me too.
Have you ever loved them and despised them at the exact same moment?
Yes, I can honestly say that. Probably more than many times.
It's insane how that happens, though.
Yeah, and feeling I think maybe more despise, I think for me is a strong word, but just frustrated beyond belief of just oh my gosh, I love you so much, and I want to wring your neck right now, you crazy person. Those moments of frustration and feeling guilty for feeling that frustration, and trying to be calm, to not take it out on them, so that, they learn good coping mechanisms. And so I'm practicing my coping mechanisms. Gosh, it's awesome. It's a therapy session.
It's exhausting.
No wonder we're all so exhausted all the time. So one of the things that we had talked about was your village, your chosen family, those folks who have supported you kind of throughout your motherhood journey. So let's talk a little bit about the conversations that you have with people, or the people that you have conversations with about how it feels to be a mother.
Okay. I can point out one of the most important people in my life. My daughter's grandmother, her dad's mom. I'd never met her when I was pregnant with my daughter's name is Rainey, and so I never met her grandmother the whole time. And then when I went to the hospital and had Rainey because I had a cesarean, and they put me to sleep, and when I woke up, there was this woman there in the room there with me, and it happened to be her grandmother, and I'd never met her before.
Wow.
And it was her grandmother and her aunt, actually her paternal aunt, and just the most amazing, I think, human being I've ever met in my entire life. And from that moment, we have been like this. She has been the most unwavering, supportive person. And I don't think I could have done a lot of that without, like, anything without her. Even like with Rainey growing up, and even with the boys. When Carter came, she's the one that threw a baby shower for him to make sure that I could get all my things. Her family. That's who I drive to their house for Thanksgiving. I drive to their house for Christmas. I talk to her on the phone all the time. She refers to herself as the grandmother to my boys. She's just that person. So that she's one of the strongest people in my village. And then I have, like an aunt that I'm very close to that I lived with briefly when my daughter was younger, and super supportive. And then lots of girlfriends and their families and a lot of their parents. I have some friends with like intact parents. Intact families, I guess you refer to it. And so I gravitate a lot towards those families and just being in those family units. I lost my dad 11 years ago now. And my mom, she's still around, but we never did things as a family. So mostly it was my friends and developing those friendships. And then I have a couple of main group of friends, and their children are around the same age as the boys are. But like when Rainey was younger, I was not friends with any like the moms of her cohort, like her school age friends, because they were all so much older than me.
Right.
I was 17 years old, and they're in their 30s and 40s, and so we had nothing in common.
Right.
And now with the boys, having them at 30 and 31, so our friends are all the same age, so that was a big difference too.
That's great. It sounds like you built up a wonderful community for yourself.
I couldn't do anything without them. I talk to them more than I talk to my blood family.
So I just have a final question here. Is there anything you would like to share about how it feels to be a mother that we haven't discussed so far?
Well, I mean, we touched on a lot of like the big points. I just, I think that the biggest takeaway with how it feels to be a mother is just knowing that your experience is uniquely you, and however, what you feel about it, and don't let anybody kind of look at you and make you feel anything different. And that's hard to learn. That was hard for me to learn. And as I've gotten older, it's gotten better, but there's still those moments. So I think that's the biggest takeaway for anyone is, be uniquely you.
Oh, I love that. That's exactly what we're trying to do here. So thank you for wrapping that up so beautifully with a bow.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. It's good seeing you.
You too. Take care.
Learn more about how it feels to be a mother by visiting howitfeelstobeamother.com and following us on our socials. Please join the conversation.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this podcast, including those of the host and guests, are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of any entity they represent. Appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The content presented is solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information provided on this podcast or materials linked from the podcast or website is at the user's own risk. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical or mental health condition they may have, and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.